Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we have the next video in our top 60 best board games of all time series. We're going from 20 to 11 today, really getting into the good stuff. So before we do get down into the list though, I do want to mention our sponsor, StoneValleyGames.com. This is your friendly, distant game store. They have all kinds of fantastic stuff over there. Some of the games from this list may be over there as well. There'll be links in the description below if that's the case. Go check them out. They have RPGs, they've got war games, they've got collectible card games, they've got board games, they've got RPGs, everything you need to scratch your tabletop itch, they can help you out. They've also got some cool programs as well. If you are a return customer, they have a loyalty program. If you are stationed overseas in the United States military with an AA, AE, or AP address, they'll ship to you for free. And if you are living in the continental United States and you order $100 or more from them, they'll ship to you for free as well. So go check them out. That's StoneValleyGames.com. There's a link in the description below. Also, if you want to support the channel, the absolute best way you can do that is entirely free. Just subscribe and like this video. You, of course, can help us out monetarily if you wish, just by going into the description. There's a couple ways there. Also, you could leave a super thanks in the comment section. But as always, we don't have a Patreon, we don't have a Kickstarter, anything like that. All our videos are always completely free, so thank you for your support. Number 20 on our list is Splendor Duel. Now this completely revived me on Splendor, or on the idea of Splendor, because the original Splendor game, I'm pretty burnt out on it at this point, but Splendor Duel is such a fantastic re-implementation. It takes a lot of the key things of Splendor and it then adds to it. So first off, the win conditions. You can win with 20 prestige. It was 15 prestige in the base game, but there's also these crowns you can collect, and 10 crowns is going to get you the win. Also though, 10 prestige in a single suit, in a single color, will get you the win. So 3 different ways you can go after the win in this game. You've got this cool board here, where this is where you're going to be getting all of your jewels from. And so these are laid out on the board, and every time they get laid out, you have to follow. Oh, look at that, I got 3 blues right there. You follow the order there, just like this, as you're putting them out, the arrows that are on the board. And so on your turn, you can when you go to select your 3 jewels, they have to be in a row. You can go vertical, horizontal, or diagonal, however you want to do it. But if I pick these 3, well, there we go. And you, of course, cannot pick gold when you're doing it that way. Also, if at any point I get 2 pearls at the same time like that, well, if I get 2 pearls, my opponent is going to get a prestige. And what the prestige allows them to do is at any point they can spend this prestige to select any one they want. Or I say at any point, not any point. At the beginning of their turn, there's a optional action phase. And during that optional action phase, or optional action step, that's when you can spend the prestige to then take any one of these you want off the board, and then still take your normal turn as well. Now, the other way somebody might end up with prestige is, let's say it was like this. Let's put these back out. All right. And when you went to take your 3, you took 3 of the same color. Because you notice there's only 2 pearls. But let's say I took 3 blue ones here. I can't remember what these are called. The sapphires, I think, right? Yeah. And so if you took 3, then you get your opponent will get the privilege as well. Also, when you refill the board, your opponent gets privilege. And you can see those are indicated right there. So you have, instead of like a bunch of different nobles, you have these 4 different nobles that will end up coming to your area, but they are not attracted by prestige. They are only attracted by crowns. And you'll see that on the cards here, some of them have 3 crowns, some have 2, some have These are all level 3. These are all level 3 cards, so probably none of them have 1. Let's look here in the level 2 cards. Yeah, see, so some of them have 1 crown. So when you get 3 crowns, then you can take any of these nobles. All right, when you get your 6th crown, you get a 2nd noble. So both players could potentially get 2 nobles during the game. You'll also see that there are these special abilities here. So this one can be any of the colors, and so you assign it a color, or you match it to one of the colors you've already taken when you get it. This means that you can actually steal a gem from your opponent. Let's see, this gives you a privilege when you buy it. This symbol gives you an extra turn. This one lets you take another of the same color from the board. And pretty sure that's all of the different abilities. So yeah, it is just this back and forth. You're always paying attention. Okay, how close are they 20? Okay, they're pretty far away, but how close are they to 10 in one color? Oh, they're a lot closer there, and they're close to having 10 crowns. And so you're always looking at where are they going? What are they trying to do? It's a really great game, and really has reinvigorated my love for this, series. I still won't be pulling regular Splendor off the shelf, but this one I'll pull off the shelf anytime you ask me. That's Splendor Duel. Number 19 was number 15 last year, so holding steady. This is Twilight Imperium 4th edition. This is the only edition of the game that I've ever played, but from everything I understand, it is an improvement essentially on everything that 3rd edition did. And really, this is one of those games where every edition has continued to move forward and improve. There's a couple that I can think of where that might not necessarily be the case, but this is one where this is a massive, you can see right here, build an intergalactic empire through trade, research, conquest, and grand politics. A lot of games will say that. This game actually delivers it. So here's this was a 5-player game that we played a little while back. You can see this is the setup at the beginning beforehand. Each team is going to have all these ships available to them. Of course, you can't build them to begin with, but every faction has its own special abilities, that can alter the way the ships work, that can alter the way they interact with the various planets. You're going to be going through these different planets and conquering them. You're going to, of course, have starting locations where you will your home planet, and then you'll branch out from there. And you're kind of making your way towards this Mechatol Rex here in the center of the board. Once somebody has, I believe, conquered Mechatol Rex. Once the first group or faction is on that planet, then it opens up a diplomatic or political phase as well that'll start happening. See, here you can see this is well into the game at this point, and you can see how, just really you're vying for space, no pun intended, but really trying to find room to spread out and but also not spread too thin. And that political phase, when you're in that, the bartering that goes back and forth, because you're actually passing laws that affect the way different things will happen during the game. And, you can try to really hamstring somebody in the political phase to make them then easier to go after when you get back into the main action phase here, where you're doing your movement and you're attacking and all of that stuff. Not only do you have the ships, but you have these ground units too. This is such an epic game. Now, the last time we played it, we decided to play the long version of the game because the normal version lasts around 8 hours or so. We decided to play a long version. Probably a mistake because it really did end up wearing itself out a little bit. It stayed a little bit too long in that case. It wore out its welcome. But when you play just the normal version, if you are looking for an epic, lengthy experience, take up an entire day type board game experience, look no further than Twilight Imperium 4th edition, a absolutely glorious time when you have a good group of people to play with that are going to get into that political phase, that are going to get into the bartering back and forth as to, hey, don't attack me, let's both attack this guy. Oh no, look, the other guy on the other side of the board is spreading out way too quickly. He's going to take over. He's going to win if we don't do something. All of those conversations make this such a fantastic experience. It's Twilight Imperium 4th edition. Number 18 was 23 last year, so it's risen 5 spots, and it's actually the highest riser in this section of the list, and it is Tapestry. Now, this is a game that I feel like, well, it has gotten its due in the solo board game community, that's for sure, because it's always in the top 100 every year when Board Game Geek, there's a list that's put together by the users. People vote on it and everything, and this always makes it into the top 100 solo games. But I feel like maybe it just doesn't get the love it's due in the rest of the community outside of that solo gaming community. But it is fantastic. I actually like it better as a multiplayer game. So here's the board that you'll see in a 1 to 3 player game. Yeah, 1 to 3 player game. All right, and everybody's going to start in one of these locations, and so you'll have your tower, maybe here, for instance, and as you spread out, then you'll push over into this area maybe, and then maybe you explore and put this here, something like that. And when you're exploring, you're wanting to try to match up the terrain. So this would actually not be a great terrain tile to put here because it doesn't really match what you're where it's going. It would be better if this was over here, because now you've got the grassland with the grass there and the ocean with the ocean, that sort of thing. But you don't always get the one that's best, and you get these bonuses on here, and everybody has their civilization that they're using, and you've got all kinds of different civilizations in here. You got the gamblers, the militants. By the way, there is at least one expansion in here, so just keep that in mind. The Chosen, so tons of fantastically different civilizations that you might be able to choose from as your civilization. And then you'll choose a capital city, the wetland, the tropical, forest, mountain. Again, all these different ones in here. And the whole idea with this is that you're going to start filling in these boxes, placing things on them to fill them up. So, maybe put that building there and put another one there. And eventually you'll gain access to some of these larger buildings like this. And the buildings really, their purpose is to fill in this grid, really. You can't fill in the orange dots. Those are considered already full. And then you're going to get, when you fill in an entire box, so this entire area here, you would get a resource that you're able to use. And when you're going to get points for filling in rows and columns as well. Meanwhile, you're also going along these tracks. So you've got the exploration track here that you're going to be working your way up. You've got the technology track up at the top up here. We've got, excuse my Amazon box here, military over here. And over on this side, you got the science track on this side. And each of them has a very different feel for what's going to happen as you work your way up them, but this is how you're going to be generating points. Also, I didn't show you this yet, but everybody's going to have their own mat here, which is where all these buildings are going to be coming from, right? You're going to have this full of, these are farms, and you have armories and houses and markets, and it's full. And so that's where you pull those from. And every time you take one off, you get the bonuses underneath there. And then, of course, the tapestries themselves. So you start off as the maker of fire. Everybody does. But eventually, at the beginning of each age, you'll play a new one down. And so there's the Grangees or the Spy Master or the Guilds. And you can see, you've got exploitation, empiricism, marriage of state. So all these different possibilities here for how your civilization is going to develop. Keep in mind, this does not feel like what a typical civilization game is. This is much more of a, work your way up the track, The civilization building aspect is very abstracted out, but it still feels so good. Moving up these tracks has a very satisfying feel to it. Has that sort of level up dopamine hit that you get when you're playing a video game and you level up or something like that, or playing Marvel Snap and you get that next, you're able to upgrade your card to the next level, that sort of thing. That's what this feels like to me every time I move up the track here. But that is Tapestry, an absolutely fantastic game from Stonemaier. I wonder if this is my highest Stonemaier game. Yes, so spoiler alert, this is my highest Stonemaier game. I really, really enjoy it. You should definitely check it out. Tapestry. Number 17 is brand new to the list. It's Lands of Galzer. Now, this is the highest ranked game from this world. Now, the game itself is not in a series, but this is in the same world as Dale of Merchants and Dawn of Peacemakers, both of which showed up earlier in my list. And this is just kind of a continuous story game, continuously evolving story game. You have all of these cards in here that, depending on your choices, will work their way into the story and into the decks that will eventually make them pop up again later. But also your character will have quests, and the quest will tell them to go to certain places. Maybe they need to go to the convention center here, or maybe they need to go over here to the ruins. And you'll be traveling along, and as you travel along, there will be events that pop up, and the events will be different depending on if you're in the grasslands or the forest or the hills or whatever. And they could even be different depending on the day of the week, because you do have the tracker down here, Monday through Sunday, keeping track of that. The whole point of the game is to develop prestige as an adventurer. So that will be tracked up here, and you can either play cooperatively or competitively, whichever way you prefer. And the end goal is slightly different if you play the cooperative mode, but that's certainly a very valid way to play. When you're playing, you'll be rolling all these dice to almost everything in the game is handled with skill checks. And, so if you're Bumir here and I've got one skill in, oh man, I can't remember the exact terminology. Hold on. Thievery, one skill in thievery, one skill in might, and 2 in survival, and that will affect how many dice you roll for various checks. And the cool thing is, so the survival die here, it's going to give you, a really good chance of getting some really good survival rolls, but then it also has stuff from the 2 neighboring. So neighboring to survival is might and knowledge, and so you can see there's a might result and a knowledge result on here as well. The black dice are just kind of the generic dice, and they have one of each of the 6 skills on them, and so you can kind of modify your skills as you go through the game to get it to where maybe you're going to be really heavily focused on this side like Bumir is right now, which means that if I have to roll for communication, he's going to kind of be in a little bit of trouble because he doesn't have communication itself. He doesn't have anything adjacent to it either. So, that's kind of one of those things that you got to figure out how you're going to best spread these out. And you can't just willy-nilly move them around, but there are events that can occur to help you move these skill markers around. And as I say, with the quest and stuff, maybe you only halfway complete a quest. A lot of times what that's going to mean is it's going to carry over into the next game. And this isn't a campaign in the sense of there's not like an overarching main world story that, if you bring new people in the next time, they're going to be left out. It's just that these characters, as they're played, have clearly done things in the world, and those things might pop back up in a future game. But you could absolutely bring in different people to play the game at different times, and they'll feel like they're part of this, like they're being dropped into this world that's alive and has already had things going on, but they're not going to feel lost. And I think that's really cool. There's these 4 different characters. You got Bumir, the marbled polecat. You got Aesla, the river kingfisher. Mor, the frilled lizard, and Karadai, the northern banded newt. I don't really want to go through the cards because there's kind of spoilers in there, even for me, because I haven't gotten very deep into this game. But there's all kinds of gear and statuses. You can get tired and stuff like that, right? And you attach it to your character, and then it's going to affect skill checks and affect how far you can move and all that kind of stuff. And it does require an app, but it's a web-based app. I say app, it's really more like you're using the website, but it's one of those where you can you download it onto your phone, and it works as an app even if you're offline. And that's how you go through the various stories and everything that are triggered when you, for instance, go to 0025. Well, that's going to be in the app. And so the app handles all of that. But there's no save feature necessary within the app. The app doesn't save anything. So it's a real minimal upkeep and realistically will always be available to you. The save function for the game is entirely handled with the card system in here. So that is Lands of Gowser. This is one that I cannot wait to really dive into much deeper. Lands of Gowser. Number 16 was 17 last year, so another one that's just very steady. I've noticed as I've gotten higher up in the list, as I've got closer to number 1, the list tends to stay more stable. So this is certainly one of them, Terraforming Mars. Now, in this game, you are, as the title suggests, Terraforming Mars. You'll be putting out, in this person's game, you can see they've got a ton of forest here. They've got the oceans going here. Then you've got these cities in here and all kinds of stuff. This is not really a typical way that a board might look, though. Let's go over here. This is a little bit more typical of how you might end up seeing a board where you've still got a pretty good amount of space out here. And granted, that probably was a more than just a solo game over there at the other one. But you can see also here on the board that you're doing a number of different things here. You are trying to raise the temperature to a livable range. You're trying to raise the oxygen on the planet as well. And then you're also trying to get water out on the planet. So those different things, you have to get to certain thresholds for each of those in order to end the game. But ending the game doesn't mean you've won the game. You're actually then going to have to count up the points and everything, and based off of your various, whatever scoring objectives you've got and your opponent has, and these different awards and milestones that you can achieve, all this stuff is going to, amount to points for you at the end of the game. And what's really neat is that as you're building out the planet here and terraforming it and really putting these tiles down, it starts to feel like you're actually accomplishing something. You get that feeling of, look at what we're doing here. And this is a game that has been very, very supported by its publisher. Lots of expansions. There's one that I would say is a must-have, which is Prelude, because it's an expansion that sort of jump starts the game. You start with some extra resources and stuff. That way the game I guess prior to that expansion, the first 2 turns of the game could feel kind of slow and boring or whatever. And so Prelude kind of was the answer to that. And I've never played without Prelude, and I don't think I ever would. They also have additional maps, I think you go to other parts of Mars, but also I feel like there's maybe a Venus map, maybe? I can't remember. There was some other stuff. Again, I've only played with Prelude, and then I think one other expansion that had something to do with the corporations. It's one of those things where my buddy has the way he plays the game, and so I'm playing his copy, and I don't know exactly what's in there. But this is a absolutely stellar game. Definitely check it out. That's Terraforming Mars. My number 15 was 7 last year, so it's dropped 8 spots, which is tied for the biggest drop in this section of the list. But 8 spots is really not that bad. This is such a fantastic game. It deserves to be in the top 20. So in Orleans, when you start the game, you'll actually have a bunch of these resource tiles. You've got wheat, cheese, wine, wool, and some sort of fabric, and they'll be all in these spaces all along the board. Depending on the player count, there'll be more or less of them, and you'll be starting here in Orleans, and then as you move to different locations, you'll pick up whatever it is you pass over. So if this was here and you move here, then you take that, and that's now in your supply. And these resources count as points at the end of the game, but sometimes you'll also have to spend them depending on different events that come out, because you have this event deck that is up here, and every turn you'll have a different event that shows up, and so that is going to be sometimes taking your resources. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes not, so like the income, you're getting money, but the whole time what you're trying to do is move along this track down to the bottom, and you're going to have, where are they? Here they are over here. So all these different workers. You've got a farmer up here. This is a lumberjack, I think. This right here is a merchant. Then you've got the boatsman, the knight, and the scholar. And you've also got monks as well. And so as you are playing, you're going to be collecting these and building out a supply of them in your bag. And so then every turn, depending on how many knights you have recruited, that's going to tell you how many you get to pull out of your bag every turn. And then you'll be placing them here on your personal player board down here, and then assigning them to these different spots. And so, for instance, if I had a farmer, a merchant, and a knight, that would let me use the wagon, which is where your merchant here, or your person, whatever he is going to move along any of the roads. But alternatively, I could have the farmer, the knight, and then a boatsman, and that would allow me to move along the water route instead. And you can build guild halls, which is one of the main ways you're going to score points. You can have one guild hall in every city, and actually in Orleans, there could be one of each color, but in the other cities, if you put a guild hall there, then you've blocked anybody else. You've got the castle here where you can recruit knights. The scriptorium lets you move along this track down here at the bottom, which again is one of the main ways you're going to be scoring points. The town hall is how you can actually purge these tokens from your bag. If you no longer want to use them, they go over to a separate board, which has some benefits as well. Get more farmers here, get boatsmen, woodsmen, or merchant here, and get scholars here at the university. And so you're just doing these actions and going through. And one cool thing here is that as you collect these woodsmen, you're going to be getting these technology tiles as well. And these let you actually replace a particular worker on your actions here. And so now the village actually would only take a farmer and a woodsman, wouldn't need the boatsman anymore. And that's really what it comes down to. Oh, now there are also buildings, though. Let's don't forget about the buildings. There are buildings that you can build to get some additional types of actions, and a lot of them are kind of variations on actions that already exist. They're just better. But yeah, lots of great ways to score points. You could maybe really focus on collecting these resources here, since those are going to be worth. You can see up here, the cloth is worth 5, wool's 4, all that kind of stuff. The guild halls combined with these people, the citizens, I think is what they're called, that will be at certain spots on the board here. When you collect them, then you've got that citizen plus your guild hall is worth victory points. So you add them together times whatever spot you're past here. So if you manage to make it all the way up the top of the track, that's times 6. You're making some serious points at that point. I mean, that's it. Orleans is a modern classic for sure, and it deserves it. And every time I pull this game out, it's a absolute blast. Number 14 was number 11 last year, another one that I don't personally own. So here we are on Board Game Geek again, Lost Ruins of Arnak. So first off, let's just talk about the phenomenal artwork in this game. The cover itself just really boom, like you see it and I'm immediately drawn in, right? So I love the presentation of this game. But then you have so many things that you're doing here, or so many things that you can be doing here, I should say. There's a deck building aspect to this game. You're moving along, trying to explore through this area of the board if you want to be, or you can be over here moving through this area of the board. You're probably going to do a little bit of both, but you also might want to focus on one and not the other. You're going to, obviously be trying to collect these different resources to help you continue, paying the costs for different things. You got these kind of arrowhead things. You've got these rubies or something like that, these compasses. And you can see you've got how it's going to help you through all of this area here. And, so that's how all of that generally works. But then you've also got your characters that you're playing as that have special abilities and stuff. So much going on in Lost Ruins of Arnak. It's really a great game, and it feels like it takes a number of different things, kind of sets them next to each other, and then stitches them together so that you almost feel like you've got these a couple to 3 different places that you could be focusing, and they're almost like games sitting next to each other, but then the interconnectivity is there as well, and that becomes more and more apparent as you get deeper into the game, how all of that works. It's a absolutely fantastic experience. I wish I had a copy so that I could show you more of it, but it really is just such a great, fun, adventurous feeling game, and once you get into it, it makes so much sense and feels so good. Can't recommend it enough. Lost Ruins of Arnak. Number 13 was 14 last year, so continuing that trend of very steady, stable games in my rankings, we have Architects of the West Kingdom. So this is the other West Kingdom game that is one I absolutely love. I actually have not played Viscounts of the West Kingdom. I thought I played the entire trilogy, but then as I'm building this list, I realized, no, I haven't played. I have to play it. My buddy who's introduced me to a lot of these games has it, and somehow it's never gotten played. So definitely need to play that. Regardless, this is Architects of the West Kingdom. This game takes worker placement, turns it on its head. Here, let's look at actually this screen first. So you got your board here where you're going to be, collecting the various, this is like marble and stone, and I don't think it's gold. Maybe that is gold. And you, of course, have all of your, West Kingdom style symbology and everything that's, once you've played a couple of the games, it starts to get real easy to understand what is going on here. And so here, you're building out these different constructions, basically, because the whole idea here is you're architects, and that's how you're making a name for yourself, is with these buildings and everything. But you also have so you got the church involved, because I think that the main goal here is that you're building the church. But so there's a kind of a piety thing going on as far as how pious you are compared to how much of a criminal you are, because there is, you can do some things in here that are a little bit more nefarious. And in fact, a huge part of this game is arresting your opponents. And so, for instance, if, hold on, let me go back to this other one that has a better view of the board here. Yeah, here we go. So, obviously different language edition here, but you go to this area here, and when the first person goes there, the effect of that action will be fine. But then when the next person goes there, it'll be better. And when the next person goes there, it'll be better. And eventually, as somebody's going to start going there a lot, they're going to have a bunch of their guys there, and it's going to be time. You got to take them out. And so you actually will arrest them and pick up all of their guys, send them to the jail over here, and then they'll have to spend an action to get their guys out of jail. So that right there is pretty cool, and a pretty unique method of dealing with worker placement. But what I love about it is that in most worker placements, you start with 2 or 3 workers. In this one, you start with all your workers. And I don't remember exactly how many, but it feels like a ton. It's got to be around a dozen or so. You start with all these workers and you're putting them all over the place. And then they start getting arrested and you've got to deal with that. So I love that. Up here you can see where you're building the cathedral. You know, lots of different paths to victory here. You can really focus on this to try to gain your victory points through being an ally of the church, or you can be more nefarious and have more of a criminal nature to what you're doing. Or you could try to do both. You know, it's a real life sim. What can I say? And it's a fantastic experience. Absolutely love the way this one works. Every time I have the opportunity, I want to play it again. And this is another one I've just got to get in my collection. I've just got to bite the bullet and do it because I know this is one that my family would get into. That's Architects of the West Kingdom. Number 12 was number 4 last year, so another one that dropped 8 spots, but this one is still such a blast. Sleeping Gods is a masterpiece of a story telling of a narrative-driven game. Or I don't know if it's narrative-driven, really. I suppose it is. It's certainly narrative-focused, and maybe there's not really even that big of a difference between the two, but the way this works is you are the crew of the Manticore, and this is the 3 to 4 player side. Here's the 1 to 2 player side, and you are going to be taking different actions on the ship. Every time you take an action, you have to move to a different one. But so you take a ship action, then you draw from the event deck, and then you take 2 actions on the map. Which let's find that real quick. There we go. So when you start the game, you start over here. And so one of your actions might be to travel. And so you'll take your ship and you'll actually move from here to here, for instance. And that would be one ship action. But I mean, not necessarily just one movement. You depending on your draw, you can see if you get a 0 to 3, you can move 1 space, a 4 to 6, 2, 7 to 8, 3, 9 plus 4. And you're able to mitigate that draw by adding crew members to help with that move. But so travel is one thing you do. You could explore, meaning you would, if you're in a section with a number, you select that number, go to the book, find that number in this book, and read the encounter that's in there. And you're going to have lots of choices that you have to make, lots of you probably take some tests that you may end up in combat. Then another one is market, which is if you see one of these symbols in the space you're in, you can go to the market, purchase some gear, purchase some food, or technically you purchase recipes and other things like that. And then you could go to port, and there's all kinds of things that could happen at port, such as here, the Zykura trading post. So you've got a crew of lots of different, you've got, I think it's 9 people total that are in your crew, and you always have 9, and so you have to split them evenly amongst the players. You can see here's some of the different items that you're going to end up working with. And here, I'm actually in the middle of a playthrough of this, is why you're going to see some stuff kind of look like it's out of place. But you got chloroform, you've got flapjacks. And so with the recipes, you actually have to acquire the ingredients, and then you can cook them. And in this case, it'll cure 3 fatigue and 3 injuries. You've got, Kempter's horn, ice links, all these different things that you can find in here. Some of these might be a little spoilery, and I apologize if that ended up being the case, but lots of stuff here for you to explore and find. You're going to have all these different conditions you might get: weakened, frightened, low morale, madness, venom, lots of things like that can happen to you. And you're working your way through this chest of cards. There's all kinds of adventure cards and quest cards in here. And as you work your way through them, you're going to just keep encountering all kinds of really neat adventures, and try not to talk about things that would be too spoilery. Let's see if I can find, where are the monsters though, so you can see those. Here we go. So some of the monsters that you might end up fighting against, would be, for instance, this Mythen Brute. This is one of the early ones you face, and a Mythen Guard, and they have slightly different stats. And when you're fighting them, when you attack, let's say I hit them for 3 damage, so I could do a damage here, and then splash one over there, which wouldn't necessarily be something I'd want to do, because these spots here aren't going to help me. The way you beat them is by covering up all the hearts. But if they had been set up like this instead, then it might be worth it for me to hit this guy here, and then splash over to this one, because these symbols mean they're going to do extra damage. But if I can cover that up, then that extra damage bonus is reduced, or not reduced, it's nullified. And so figuring out how you're going to spread your damage out, if you're going to focus on one of the monsters first and then the other one, or if you're going to do some splash damage like that. Some really cool choices there. I thoroughly enjoy the combat in this game. I know that it's kind of a controversial combat system, but I really enjoy it a lot. The adventures you go on, the exploration is very, very, very cool. That's Sleeping Gods. And number 11, just barely missing out on the top 10, is Nemesis Lockdown. Now, I never played the original Nemesis, so I can't compare it to that, but this game is fantastic and so intense. So you've got this underground bunker, or yeah, I guess it is. I think this side of the map, it is all underground, because the other side, if you flip the board over, you have a portion of it that's above ground. But in the bunker is where you're going to be, and you're going to have to set up all these rooms. And there's all kinds of rooms that could be out here. You've got the defense control room, you've got the cargo sending system, you've got the CSS control room, just all kinds of stuff, right? Testing lab. And when they're initially out, they're going to be face down like this. And so you don't know where you're going. You're trying to find these places. These are all the level 2 rooms. And you're searching around to try to make sure that you can achieve, you're going to have your specific objective, and you're going to be one of these people here. You've got the sentry, the janitor, the survivor, the xenobiologist, the hacker, and the lab rat. And so you'll be roaming around here. And again, all these spots are going to have rooms on them. I haven't put them all out, but you'll be roaming from room to room. You're going to be, causing noise, and when noise happens, you'll be putting these noise tokens in the corridors. And if a noise token is ever supposed to be put in a corridor that already has one, then you might end up attracting one of these nasty aliens. And some of them are so bad. You got some of these little guys like this that might show up, and no big deal, you can handle that, right? Well, be careful, because those guys also are kind of like face huggers, so you gotta be careful. But then maybe their big brother shows up, or maybe this guy shows up. Then again, it could be this guy that shows up, or this guy, or maybe, if you're really unlucky, even the queen shows up. And I mean, there's, each of them are gonna cause you to have a really bad day. But then you also have doors that you can close off corridors with, like that, but then sometimes those doors will get broken open, and then you can't seal it back up at that point. Every room has its own special abilities. You're going to be you got the elevator over here. You'll be tracking the power for different sections, whether it's on or off. Every section has a power icon to tell you if that section is powered or not. If the section's powered, it's helpful because the noise goes away quicker, because it kind of gets drowned out in the hum of the facility. You might end up having to deal with fire. Again, the exploration tokens too, by the way. When you go into a room for the first time, there's going to be an exploration token there as well. So you got to see what's going on with that. Could be good, could be bad. certain times when you get attacked and wounded, you're going to take contamination cards, and these may say that you're contaminated, may not be. You need to, if you have some that say you are actually infected, they got to get out of your deck before you escape the facility, because if they don't, then you're dead anyway and you lose the game. You might end up with serious wounds. They're going to cause problems for you. Every hero is going to have their own deck of cards. Every character, I should say, is going to have their own deck of cards, and you're going to be playing through this deck of cards, and you'll probably cycle through the deck 2 or 3 times, maybe 3 or 4 times by the end of the game, and that's how you're going to be moving around the board and attacking and all that kind of stuff. You also have to deal with the fact that this corporation isn't particularly thrilled with the fact that they may have caused an alien outbreak. And one of these is going to be their agenda, the corporation's agenda. So it could be to save everyone. That's highly unlikely, though, but it could be to save everyone. And this will be set aside. Whichever one of these is set aside at the beginning of the game, you'll know, okay, here's the agenda. We don't know what it is. It's set up there. And then everybody else is going to be having ways that they might be able to look at the remaining ones to try to suss out what the real agenda is. But like I said, it could be save all. It could be to kill all who have 4 or less knowledge. Let's see, we've got kill all who did not send the signal, kill all in the isolation room, or kill all in the CSS pods. So you've got to figure out which one of those is the corporation's agenda. That way you know how to get out of here safely, but then you're going to have your own special objective, and you actually start with 2 secret objectives at the beginning of the game, and you kind of decide which one at a certain point. I think it's, if I remember correctly, when the first alien shows up, at that point you got to decide which of these objectives am I going for, and you get rid of the other one. Oh, I forgot about this. You can research the aliens. You can research the aliens, and as you do so, as you gain knowledge on this board, you'll uncover different weaknesses, and as long as you have enough knowledge, so 3 knowledge lets you use this weakness, 5 this weakness, and 8 this weakness. So as long as you have that level of knowledge, then you're going to have a leg up on fighting the aliens. What a cool game system. Love it. Maybe one day I'll get my hands on some of the other Nemesis stuff. This one has so much variability that I don't feel the need to, because I'm going to enjoy this for a while. Maybe try to get my hands on some additional characters or something like that. We'll see. But this is just an absolute blast. Nemesis Lockdown.
And that's our number 20 through 11. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to come back in the very near future as we get our top 10 videos published. Got some new ones on the list this year, some games that shot right into the top 10. In fact, let's see real quick. We have 2 new games in the top 10. It's a good one. I love every single one of the games in that section. So come back, check it out. Also, be sure to watch for other great videos coming up soon. How to play Aeon Trespass Odyssey. That series is continuing. Also continuing the How to Play Frosthaven series. How to play Lands of Galzer, and How to Play 1815 Scale of the Earth. All of that coming up very soon. And until next time, for Board Online, Board Offline.